Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the APH Virtual Excel Academy, Outer Space Adventure Mobility that gets you out of this world. We are so excited to have you here today. We have our presenter, Cecilia Bates. Let's welcome her to this first webinar. We are excited to have her here. As always, if you have anything that you would like to say to us, make sure you drop it in the chat and we will do our best to respond to you as quickly as we can. So Cecilia, I'm going to turn it over to you. It's all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. Hello and welcome, everyone. All right, we're going to wait just a couple more minutes to see if anybody else comes on. How is everyone doing this evening? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, astronauts, both who are live with us tonight and those who are viewing this later. My name is Miss Bates, and I will be your guide through space today. I am a teacher of the visually impaired and orientation and mobility specialist in Arkansas. I do not have any kids of my own, but I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. I am a white female with long blonde hair. Tonight, I am wearing glasses that are red and a long sleeve black shirt. And before we start our lesson, we are going to review the rules and expectations for class this evening. Just so everybody knows, I will be using Google Slides during this lesson. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that way we can see, everybody can look at our rules. All right. So our rules, if you want to unmute, please wait to be called on and have a quiet background. Raise your hand if you have a question. You have to join with a name. If you do not join with a name, we will rename you. This helps the teachers know who you are. The chat will be open throughout the session, and we hope to have a good conversation about the information we are covering. To the next slide. And don't forget, this session will be recorded. So if you miss something or need to go back and listen again, it will be available so you can participate at your own pace. There will also be an extension activity for you to put into action what you learned today. Today, we are going to learn about spatial words and terms. What spatial words and terms do you all think you might learn today? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can check the chat. Oh, Monica says maybe right and left. That's a good answer, Monica. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Up and down, Clara says. I like that, Clara. That was good. Those who are watching the recording, what words do you think we might learn today? Today, we are going to learn about spatial awareness, spatial terms, and where our bodies are in relation to objects. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to get the fun started. All right. Does everybody have their 2 objects ready? If you do not have 2 objects, that is perfectly fine. You can use your hands. They will work just fine. Now it's time to blast off into outer space. Everyone, can you point up? Good job. That is the way our spaceship is going to go. Up, up, up into outer space. On our way up into outer space, our rocket ship is going to lean to the left and to the right. Everyone, can you lean to your right? Good job. Now we're going to go to our left. And my arrows are pointing in the way of your left, to your left. Good job, everyone. Now we are in outer space. Now that we're here in outer space, let's take a couple of minutes to use our imaginations and build our own planets. I'm going to show you my planet that I made for this lesson. My planet has a river running through the middle of it. And on my planet, there are trees, horses. We eat apples and soft pretzels. And under my river, we have flowers, a baseball, a football, cactus, dogs, and cats. Would anybody like to share what is on their planet? Monica says her planet has stars, giant clouds, and cotton candy trees. Oh, I like cotton candy trees. Does anybody else want to share what's on their planet? Joey says his planet is super tiny, but it has a ton of mountains on it. I bet Joey goes hiking on his mountains. Carlos says his planet has an airplane. Oh, that sounds like fun. Bobby says that his planet has lots of rocks and trees and rivers. Clara's planet has popcorn trees, low gravity, bouncy houses, and playgrounds. Those all sound like super fun planets. I would like to go visit all of them. Those who are watching the recording later, what is on your planet? Donnie's planet has iPads and Wi-Fi. Those are very important things, Donnie. Very important things. All right, everyone, let's all stand up and we're going to explore our planets. Did everybody know that spatial terms are the same as mobility words? We're going to practice using some of our spatial mobility words when we are exploring our planets. And I'm going to share my screen. That way we can all look at the words we're going to use together. All right, everyone. Let's review our words before we start. The mobility words and terms that we're going to remember tonight and we're going to learn about tonight are up, down, left, right, under, the arrow is under, and over, and the arrow is over the board. We're also going to learn 2 new words tonight. Those words are parallel and perpendicular. We'll talk more about those here in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. All right, is everybody ready to practice your mobility and spatial words? I sure am. All right. Let's practice using our words. Everyone, can you turn to your right and take 2 steps? Ready? 1, 2. I am using a blackboard with Velcro and a little person. And I took 2 steps to my right. And everybody else do that?
Hi everyone, this is Robin from the background. Miss Cecilia's Wi-Fi is a little glitchy.
And we're gonna go back up into outer space. We're going to go back up into outer space. All right. All right, so did everybody take your 2 steps to your right? All right, good job, everyone. Now, is everybody still standing up? Now we're gonna take 2 steps to our left. Are you ready? 1, 2. But before we do that, we're going to review our words again. The words we're going to talk about are up, down, left, right, under, and over. And then there's those 2 new words we're going to learn tonight: parallel and perpendicular. All right, so let's start that again. Let's start practicing our words again together, okay? Can everybody stand up for me while we explore our planets with our cotton candy trees and our popcorn trees and Wi-Fi and iPads? All right, everybody, are you ready? Let's turn and take 2 steps to our right. Ready? 1, 2. Good job, everyone. Now, let's all turn and take 2 steps to our left. Are you ready? 1, 2. Great job, everyone. Now you can turn back and find your chair and sit down. Oh no! There's a big, rocky, round meteor coming right at us. What should we do? Should we go through the meteor? Should we go around the meteor? Should we go under the meteor? Can someone help me decide what we should do for the meteor? What should we do? Those who are watching this later, what should we do? Clara says we should go around the meteor. Oh, I love that answer, Clara. Well, Monica says go under, dive under it. Bobby says we should go through the meteor and make it explode. I like that one. We should make it explode. Thank you everyone for helping. We made it past the big round meteor. Let's continue to explore our new planets and practice our spatial and mobility words. Now I'm going to teach you two new and very important mobility words. These words are parallel and perpendicular. Parallel. Whoa, that's a big word. Let's clap that word out together. Are you ready? Parallel. Let's do that again. Let's clap it out together again. Are you ready? Parallel. Parallel means lines that do not cross. Lines that never cross each other. I'm going to show you using my hands and on my board and using my arrows what parallel looks like. My hands are parallel to each other. My palms are facing each other. Are they crossing? No, they are not crossing. So my hands are parallel to each other. Now, if I turn them and have one on top of the other with my palms still facing each other, are they still parallel? Use the chat and answer if my hands are parallel to each other. I have both of my hands up and I have one hand on top of the other with my palms together. Donnie says, yes, they are still parallel. Monica says they are parallel too. And Sydney says, yes. That was great answers, everyone. Yes, my hands are still parallel. And when I use my arrows, I can make my arrows parallel. I have one arrow on top of the other. Those are parallel too. And when I turn them to face you and have both of them side by side, those are parallel. All right. Can anybody tell me anything that they might be parallel with right now? The walls, a computer screen. Monica says she is parallel to a bookshelf. I am parallel in my room to some closet doors. So the next word that we're going to talk about is perpendicular. Wow, that's another really big word. We're going to clap this one out together too. Ready? Perpendicular. Let's clap that one out again. Ready? Perpendicular. Perpendicular means two lines that do cross each other. So I'm going to use my hands first to show you what perpendicular means. Are you ready? I have one hand facing straight up with my fingers towards the ceiling, and I'm going to put my other hand on top of it. So my top hand is touching the top of my fingers. That is perpendicular, when two lines intersect or cross each other. My hands are crossing each other right now. If I cross my arms, where my arms are across each other in front of my body, that is perpendicular too, because my arms are crossing. I can make my arrows cross if I stand one straight up and turn one to the side. Those are perpendicular. On your planet or in your house, what could you be perpendicular to now? Monica says the floor. Donnie said his iPad. I am perpendicular to my desk. Bobby says the ceiling. Clara says her dog. Good job, everyone. So now we know the words parallel and perpendicular. All right, everyone, let's get our two objects out and ready. I'm going to use my arrows, and we're going to practice our spatial terms while we're using these objects. Remember, if you do not have any objects, you can use your hands. Maeve says the rovers in front of us on our planet. Maeve, are those parallel or perpendicular to us? Perpendicular, that's right. All right, you guys, are you ready to practice using our objects? With one of your objects, can you point to your right? Great job, everyone. Now with that same object, can you point up? Good job, everyone. Now let's all point to our left. Good job. Now, can everybody show me how you can make your two objects parallel to each other? I have my arrows and one is on top of the other and they are facing the same way. And they are parallel to each other. Great job, everybody. All right, ready? The last one. Perpendicular. Can you make your objects perpendicular to each other? I am using my arrows and I have them stacked one on top of the other. Great job, everyone. Now, I have a super silly story to share with you guys. And I'm going to share my screen so that way we can all read it together. Alan, the alien is coming to visit. First, he is going to get in his spaceship. He sneezed because his spaceship smelled like stinky shoes. And using the chat, everybody tell me what spatial word or keyword they may have heard in that sentence. In that sentence, I heard the word in. First, he got in his spaceship. Did anybody else hear that word? Shoes. Clara heard in. Monica says she heard it. Maeve says she heard it too. Let's see what else Alan the alien is going to do. He sits down in the captain's seat. Your turn. Using the chat, tell me which spatial or mobility word you might have heard it in that sentence. Down. Good job, Clara. Oh, Monica says in. Donnie says down. Maeve says in. Those are both really good answers. He screamed because he realized his cat was under the spaceship. Ah! Using the chat, what words, mobility word did you hear in that sentence? Under. Under. That's right. The word under was in that sentence. Let's see what else this silly Alan the alien is going to do. As he is flying through space, he finds another friend, Sally. Sally is flying parallel to Alan. She parks her spaceship and joins Alan. Your turn. What mobility or spatial word did you hear in that sentence? Monica heard parallel. So did Clara and Bobby. Could the word through be a mobility word or a spatial word if we're going to go through space? Maeve says parks, joins, and parallel. Donnie says parallel. Monica, that's right, through. Through could be a mobility word. Let's find out what Sally and Alan are going to do when they're flying in space. Sally comes through the spaceship door and turns to the left. Your turn. Tell me what spatial or mobility words you heard in that sentence. Clara says through and left. Bobby says through and left. Monica heard through and left. She laughs and tells Alan that his spaceship is super stinky. It must still smell like stinky shoes in there. Donnie said that he heard right and left. That's right, Donnie. She sits in the seat to the right of Alan. She puts her seatbelt across her body. Your turn. In the chat, tell me what spatial or mobility words you may have heard in that sentence. Donnie says across. Bobby says across. Monica says right. Clara says in, right, across. Those are all really good answers, everyone. They are flying all around in space looking for planet rainbow sprinkle stars. They turn the spaceship left and right and go over and under meteors that are drifting in space. In those two sentences, can everybody in the chat tell me what words they heard? Bobby says under and over. Monica says around. Clara says around, up and down, left, right. Sydney says under and over. So does Donnie. Donnie says under and over. That's right. Those are all spatial and mobility words that we heard in those sentences. Let's find out what happens next. They cannot find planet Rainbow Sprinkle Star. Sally yells, Alan, stop! The moon is right in front of them. It is big and has lots of interesting things floating around. Did anybody hear any spatial or mobility words? Tell me in the chat. Monica says in front. Donnie says, stop. Clara says around in front. That's right. In front and around are all good mobility and spatial terms to use. Let's find out what happens next. Alan slams on the brake and takes a deep breath. Suddenly, they both look up and find that planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars is above them. Tell me in the chat what spatial or mobility words you might have heard in those sentences. Clara says above. Monica says up. Bobby says up. Donnie says deep breath. That's right. Those were our words. Alan and Sally get out of their spaceship to start exploring planet Sprinkle Stars. What spatial or mobility words were in that sentence? Out of, says Donnie. Clara says out. That's right. That was the mobility word in that sentence. They find lots and lots of new types of flowers hiding under their spaceship. What mobility or spatial word did you hear in that sentence? flowers, under. Good job. Alan and Sally find a new friend walking parallel to them. This friend's name is Glob Bob. Tell me, what spatial or mobility words did you hear in that sentence? Monica and Donnie both say parallel, so does Clara. That's right. And remember, parallel means they are next to each other. They don't cross. Walking. That's right. Glob Bob welcomes them to Planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars and starts walking next to them. Were there any spatial or mobility words in that sentence? Tell me in the chat. Next to Donnie, that's right. Monica says next to. Let's find out what happens with Alan, Sally, and Glob Bob as they explore Planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars. Glob Bob points out that there is a river perpendicular to them. Were there any spatial or mobility words in that sentence? River. Monica says perpendicular. Clara says perpendicular. Maeve says perpendicular. Good job, everyone. Perpendicular was the word in that sentence. And remember, perpendicular means that they do cross each other. So I have one hand pointing up and one hand on top of it, and my hands are perpendicular to each other. He warns them not to fall into the river. There are giant birds that live in the river. Were there any mobility words in that sentence? Into. That's right, Clara. Monica says in. Sally and Alan tell Glob Bob that birds don't live underwater. They live up in the sky. Your turn. Tell me any spatial or mobility words that you might have heard in that sentence. In, Maeve says. Clara says up, in, under. Monica says under. Glob Bob is shocked. He is shocked that birds don't live underwater. On Planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars, birds live underwater and fish live above them in the sky. Using the chat, tell me any spatial or mobility words you may have heard. On Planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars, birds live under the water and fish live above them in the sky. Donnie says he heard the word in. Clara says she heard under and above. Monica says above. Great job, everyone. Alan and Sally say goodbye to Glob Bob and thank him for showing them around Planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars. Alan and Sally cannot wait to get back to Earth and to tell all their friends about planet Rainbow Sprinkle Stars and the birds that live underwater and the fish that live up in the sky. Does anybody hear any spatial words in that sentence? That's right, Donnie. Bye, Sally. Bye, Alan. Bye, Glob Bob. What spatial words did you hear? Monica says she heard under. Clara says she heard under, in, and up. Great job, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay, now for your extension activity for this week, you will be creating a tactile map of your new house on your new planet. In the chat, can anybody tell me what they think a tactile map might be? Donnie says he doesn't know what it is. Clara says a map that you can feel. Monica says a map to help you learn what's in a room that you can touch. Those are great answers. A tactile map is a map that is created for students who are blind or visually impaired that can be read by touch. Tactile maps are important because it is another way for students to learn to become more independent. They allow students and adults to learn the layout or shape of a room and what all is in the room. Has anybody ever used a tactile map before? Donnie, tactile maps are something that you or your teachers may have made. I'll show you one that I made. Monica says yes, her teacher showed her one when she started a new school. Clara says she has felt one before. I'll show you a tactile map that I have made to share with you guys. I am holding a black board with Velcro, and on it, I have some yellow lines that are parallel to each other, and also two that are perpendicular to each other. And they are smooth and yellow. In the middle of my parallel yellow lines, I have some lines that are kind of rough that are made from squares that are black and white. And I have arrows that point to the left and to the right, and some that point in turning directions. This is a map of what an intersection or streets may look like. I have some gray squares up top that feel kind of like rocks, and that represents my sidewalk. And then at the very bottom, I have 1, 2, 3 triangles that represent trees. This is my tactile map. You can make tactile maps of your classroom, of your house, of your neighborhood. You can make a tactile map out of anything. You could use any materials you have available to you. That is your extension activity for this week. Does anybody have any questions? You're welcome, Monica. Monica says, thanks for the lesson.
All right. Thank you, Miss Cecilia, for such a fun lesson. This was great. We used so many spatial terms today. I think I'll be using them for the rest of the day. Parallel, perpendicular, over, under, you name it, we will be using it. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's APH Virtual Excel Academy. We have another great session coming up with Cecilia, where it's passport time, where we're going to start talking about what we're going to wear in different seasons. So be on the lookout for that one for elementary students. And this Saturday, we have one for our older students with an occupational therapist in a 3-part series called Skills You Can Use. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will see you next time.